Check this out. Google has made a big mistake in merging podcasts into YouTube Music. The app fails to grasp what podcast listeners want. It stubbornly insists on prioritizing video versions of podcasts, even when all you want is audio. Videos eat battery and data, and besides, Google already has a dedicated video app. It's called YouTube. Nathan Drescher from Android Police is not holding back in this article, my friends. Last year, I predicted that YouTube podcasts were going to be the next giant thing for YouTube long-form, ultra-long-form content. I predicted was going to be huge, and it really has been. But what has happened with the podcast industry, with Google, with YouTube, it has been nothing short of astounding. And today we're going to dive into it because I have some predictions for podcasts. So if you guys have a podcast, you're going to want to listen to this. I also just want to go through the juicy drama because there's a couple articles that I found here where people don't hold back. You know how Uncle Raph is, y'all. I don't like to hold back. I like to just hit him right between the eyes. So this is right up my alley. All right, folks, if you are new here, my name is Scott Simpson. I'm the CEO of Graffiti Media. People affectionately in the comments call me Uncle Raph. You know, Graffiti, just a shortened version. Because for some strange reason, people always say Raffiti or Raffity. I get Raffity a lot. And I'm like, bros, it's graffiti without the G. You wouldn't say Raffity. No. My mission on this channel is to bring you creator news, read between the lines, and help you to see that revenue is greater than fame. I want to talk to you about how to increase your revenue with your YouTube channels. If you like that kind of stuff, hit the subscribe button. Let's rock and roll. Podcasts, there's so much potential with podcasts on the YouTube platform, folks, because the biggest problem with podcasts in general has always been searchability. You can't go to iTunes and search for specific keywords in a specific podcast that you found and hope to ever find that podcast. Sometimes it's really even difficult to find podcasts that you've listened to in the past, and then trying to find where in those podcasts, in that transcript, you heard something specific, near impossible. YouTube has changed the game. Now, what old Nathan Drescher is whining about in his blog here is that YouTube Music is the place where YouTube has tried to sync their podcast hosting. So when you upload a video on YouTube and you throw it into your designated podcast playlist, not only will it show up on YouTube proper, it will also show up on YouTube Music, which is Google's way of competing with Spotify. Now, the biggest problem with YouTube Music as of right now is anything that you throw into your podcast playlist is automatically going to pull up a video when you go to YouTube Music on mobile or on desktop unless you select audio only. This is a massive pain. The point that Nathan is trying to make is that we don't need a second YouTube. We need a place where we can listen to audio only. The problem with listening to audio only on YouTube proper is that you have to pay for a premium subscription. A little bit of the greedies going on there. But hey, listen, when has Google ever shied away from the greedies? Am I right? All right, so what he says here, the video version often takes center stage, even if the podcast is clearly focused on audio. This feels completely backwards for us podcast fans. YouTube Music was seemingly built with video as a priority, and shoehorning podcast onto the platform simply doesn't work. I agree. I listen to YouTube Music. I pay for a YouTube Premium subscription, so I get YouTube Music for free. And we listen to a lot of music on YouTube Music, which is fantastic. But when it comes to podcasts, they're super hard to find even on YouTube Music. And not only that, but Google got rid of Google Podcasts. I'm going to dive into this article here in just a second. But before I do that, I need to rant for just a second. YouTube is removing Google Podcasts. It's making podcasts hard to listen to on YouTube Music without watching it. And so in my opinion, what Google is trying to do is force all of the podcast content onto YouTube proper and make YouTube proper the platform for everything that is video and audio related. Now, before I get into what I think is going to happen with music, let's go through this article. Now, this is written by David Pierce, another dude with a bone to pick. Okay, so this whole article is about Google Podcasts going away. So Google Podcasts is dead. Good opener. That's a good little hook. I am intrigued, David. Hit me with some more. It's been dying for a few months. Nice. since Google announced last fall that it was killing its dedicated podcast app in order to focus on its podcasting efforts on YouTube Music. This is a bad idea and a big downgrade, and I'd be more mad if only I were more surprised. So this whole thing is about Google killing off products, but I do like his use of dead, dying, and killing. A lot of like extremes in there. But David says it's focusing all of its podcasting efforts on YouTube Music, which I actually don't think it is. I think it's focusing its podcasting efforts on YouTube proper. So let's keep going. Google says it's simply responding to the market and that YouTube is a much more popular place for people to find podcasts than Google Podcasts. I don't disagree, but I think that Google has some wrinkles that it needs to iron out. I have a steamer. It needs to steam the wrinkles out. What's more frustrating in this case, though, is that Google had an opportunity to do something genuinely great in podcasts. Podcasting discovery is a problem, and so is finding information buried inside hours of audio. Well, David, here's where you and I disagree. Because now that everything is transcribed, I think that YouTube actually is going to be a great place for people to find podcast content. Search their favorite episodes, search tidbits and snippets from within podcast episodes. I think that this was a good move, consolidating Google Podcasts into YouTube and YouTube Music. Again, I have some thoughts about YouTube Music that I'm going to get to in just a second, but I'm not as much of a Karen David is about Google Podcasts. Google could have owned the whole experience, helping turn a bunch of casual scrollers into listening obsessives and maybe figured out how to monetize it for everyone. But in reality, they've already got a great platform for content, which is YouTube. So here's the big rant, and I want to read this because it's important. There's a very simple, short-sighted logic at work in the move to YouTube Music. The YouTube is a video platform. Video ads make YouTube lots of money. Google Podcast doesn't have video ads. So you can imagine the meeting where someone's like, if we can get everyone to watch podcasts on YouTube, they'll watch more videos and we can show more ads. Plus, YouTube Music is a subscription app and nobody's going to pay $10 a month for a podcast app. There's a much straighter line from podcast to money on YouTube than there is on YouTube podcasts. So from a business perspective, I understand his gripe, but if you think about the entire YouTube experience, you can watch and listen to content for free with ads, yes, but I pay for premium to be ad-free, and it's well worth the $10 a month. And if you also look at who's leading the pack in hours watched for streaming services online, you compare YouTube to Netflix, Hulu, Max, Paramount, Stars, Amazon, YouTube destroys everybody with hours watched. And all of those platforms come at a cost. So paying $10 for YouTube for an ad-free experience, in my opinion, is 100% worth it. And if they can consolidate all of the podcast onto the YouTube app, makes way more sense. Plus, podcasters can make more money with AdSense. Podcasters used to only make money when they would sell some type of endorsement or brand deal. I think this makes way more sense for podcast creators. Oh, and then he throws out the money grubbing. Even allowing for all the money grubbing, the main problem is that Google Podcasts is drastically better podcast app than anything coming out of YouTube. Yeah, but David, you're a short-sighted writer for The Verge. Like, you're not thinking in terms of business and what actually makes more sense for podcast hosts, which I think is YouTube. In my opinion, you guys, there has never been a better time to create a podcast and make money from your podcast. Again, all these guys who are creating these whiny articles about their podcasts not being shown on Google Podcasts, not liking the experience on YouTube Music, it doesn't matter. Even if podcasts disappear from music, which ultimately I think that they will, it makes way more sense for podcast hosts to be pushing their stuff on YouTube. Now, what's going to happen with YouTube Music? I think that YouTube Music is still going to be fiercely competitive to Spotify. I think that it's a great service, even though YouTube Music comes at a premium of $10.99 a month. The alternative is Amazon Music or Spotify with ads. In my opinion, if you're going to be paying for a music service and you want to have access to your favorite podcast on YouTube as well, then YouTube Music still is a good option. Folks, it's never been a better time to start a podcast on YouTube than right here today. And if you want to learn how to grow a podcast or a YouTube channel, I've got a free blueprint down in the description below. Take it or leave it, folks. It's recently updated. Or if you want to skip the dating phase and jump straight into dessert marriage, then I've got a link at the top of the description where you can watch a short video talking about what we do at Graffiti Media. All right, folks, if you want to see how I gained 1.3 million views on a short in 24 hours, take a look at this video right here. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye.